Hello out there, everybody. Manny here at Area 503. And I hope you all have been well since our last video. In a previous video, I covered what was going to occur when the NASA InSight mission made it to Mars. Unfortunately, I was unable to live stream the event. However, I did watch it live and record it, and I figured I'd put it up here for all of you that missed it. Now, they were throwing around a lot of acronyms, and I will do my best to keep you guys updated as to what those mean. And at the end of the video, I will have a curious observation, so make sure that you stick around for that. We're about 15 minutes away from touchdown, and we're about to begin the separation of the cruise stage.
Inside systems, EDL comma.
Go ahead.
Inside court. At this time, MRO will have loaded their electro sequences. Marco is expecting carrier lock at any time. Marco B is reported there in bent pipe.
Bent pipe simply means that the Marco CubeSats are intercepting the data from InSight and relaying it back to the Deep Space Network.
Radio Science report, UHF carrier detected.
EDLCon, Marco Alpha is in bent pipe mode. Marco Bravo has locked on the carrier. Marco Alpha has also locked on carrier.
System based on InSight cord. As expected, the DSN has LOS for InSight expand.
Copy that, thank you.
The Deep Space Network is a series of satellite dishes positioned around the North Pole. Any satellite over 30,000 kilometers can be tracked by one of these dishes at any given time.
All station InSight systems on InSight core. DSN has lost the X-band signal from InSight, indicated expected cruise stage separation. Standing by for UHF signal acquisition via Marco or Radio Science.
We are about 5 minutes from entry and have confirmation we've lost the X-band signal from InSight. This was expected because we have transitioned from the antenna on the cruise stage to the UHF antenna on board the spacecraft. Ground stations have detected the UHF signal and Marco has locked on the signal. This confirms that InSight is transmitting UHF signals as expected. InSight telemetry through the Marco relay is not expected until about 2 minutes before entry. The vehicle has also performed the turn to entry maneuver. The vehicle is turning away from a sun-pointing attitude and oriented itself to enter the Martian atmosphere.
Just getting the cruise stage separated. It's now, after the vehicle turns itself to the right orientation, the cruise stage is now going to be get further and further away until it's about 3 or 4 football fields away, and will burn up in parallel as the vehicle enters Mars.
And Christine mentioned turn to entry. What does that mean?
Well, it's because the cruise stage has to be pushed off to one side, like this. The rest of the vehicle has to turn to face the atmosphere and to be dead nuts on as it hits the top of the atmosphere.
So this is taking all the heat coming into the atmosphere.
Exactly. It'll be both provide a source of drag, but also thermal protection because it gets over 1,500 degrees Celsius on the top of on this heat shield. Very, very hot. But on the inside of the heat shield, it may be only a fraction of a few degrees above room temperature. So it's a wonderful protective device to keep our lander safe.
All right. So the next thing we're standing by for is
entry. Getting through getting to the top of the atmosphere and gradually slowing down. Right now, the vehicle's just now beginning to. Very soon, we'll be beginning to feel the atmosphere touching it. Actually, entry is above the atmosphere slightly, so it's really not until a few half a minute or so after entry before we start really detecting the fact that that atmosphere is slowing us down.
All right, we'll be standing by.
So, just how difficult is it to land on Mars?
It's a very difficult thing to do, and everything has to go perfectly. As humans, we've sent 17 different missions to the surface of Mars, and 10 of them have crashed. Before we can land on Mars, we have to get to Mars. How do we get to Mars?
The main responsibility of the navigation team is to ensure that the spacecraft is delivered to the right point at the top of the Martian atmosphere. The target location is about 12 kilometers in size. Our accuracy is comparable to shooting a basketball from Staples Center in downtown LA and hitting nothing but net in a basketball hoop in New York City that is moving at a speed of about 2 feet per second and is spinning about its axis.
The landing site, we have an ellipse that's pretty big. It's about 60 miles long. We could land anywhere in that ellipse. There's a chance that we could land right on a rock, and we don't really have any control over that, so that's what makes me nervous.
We've tested the radar by flying it on a helicopter. We've tested pieces of the heat shield by putting them in an arc jet facility. We've tested the parachute by testing it in a wind tunnel. And putting all that together in a very tightly controlled sequence where every single thing has to go right, we've never tested that. And the first time it's going to happen is once you deliver us to Mars.
Radio Science reports dropping carrier power as expected.
Marco A and Marco B have telemetry.
Just heard, both Marcos have telemetry.
They are doing their job. These small CubeSats are relaying ones and zeros with a few seconds lag from the vehicle up to these two vehicles, and they forward them back to Earth to the Deep Space Network using X-band antennas.
And keep in mind, this was all an experiment. We weren't sure that this was going to work, but we had this need that we didn't have live communication in this particular mission.
Well, we don't really need communications. We don't need their information, except if something went wrong. We would very much like to get the data right now. We have other spacecraft.
We are now receiving InSight telemetry via the Marco relay.
Just flowing into their station.
And it would appear Marco is online. Good job, NASA.
This data will provide detailed information about the state of the spacecraft throughout EDL.
The CubeSat program was extremely innovative and will most likely be used on most future missions. It removes the need for an orbiter by replacing the orbiter with a pair of amplifying satellites.
Atmospheric entry on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
And here you can see the entry module entering the atmosphere. And it's going to heat up as it skims through the atmosphere. Very similarly to a meteorite in our own atmosphere.
In approximately 1 minute, InSight is expected to reach its maximum heating rate. Plasma blackout is possible during peak heating and could cause a temporary dropout of telemetry. This could last for as long as 2 minutes.
Yeah, the gas that comes off the heat shield as it's slowing down, it looks like a meteor if you're on Mars watching the streak go by. That brightness of gas does interfere with your radio reception. So it's possible that Marco will lose that signal while it's going through this very hot entry.
But not to be alarmed.
Not to be alarmed. It's part of the design. We completely expect it.
Radio Science reports plasma blackout as expected.
Ground stations have reported plasma blackout, still receiving InSight telemetry via Marco.
Marco Alpha has carrier interruption.
InSight should now be experiencing the peak heating rate. Portions of the heat shield may reach nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it protects the lander from the heating environment.
Marco Bravo shows carrier interruption, but still in lock.
This is a tense time for the team. Anytime there's a carrier interruption, they are receiving no telemetry from the spacecraft. And nobody likes to be flying blind.
InSight has passed through peak deceleration. Telemetry shows the spacecraft saw about 8 Gs.
Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo maintain lock.
Radio science reports carrier detected.
InSight is now traveling at a velocity of 2,000 meters per second. InSight is now traveling at 1,000 meters per second. Once InSight slows to about 400 meters per second, it will deploy its 12-meter diameter supersonic parachute. The parachute will deploy nominally at about Mach 1.7. Standing by for parachute deploy.
Radio science reports sudden change in Doppler.
Ground stations are observing signals consistent with parachute deploy.
Marco Alpha, Marco Bravo maintain lock status.
Telemetry shows parachute deployment. Radar powered on. Heat shield separation commanded. We have radar activation, where the radar is beginning to search for the ground. Once the radar locks on the ground and InSight is about 1 kilometer above the surface, the lander will separate from the backshell and begin terminal descent using its 12 descent engines. Altitude convergence, the radar has locked on the ground.
Yes.
Standing by for lander separation.
Carrier interruption on Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo.
Lander separation commanded. Altitude 600 meters. Gravity turn, altitude 400 meters.
We're getting there.
300 meters. 200 meters, 80 meters, 60 meters, 50 meters, constant velocity, 37 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters, 17 meters, standing by for touchdown.
I think the look on these two guys' faces pretty much sums up what we're all feeling right about now.
Touchdown confirmed.
And all around there was much celebration, with just cause. It's quite a feat to land something on Mars, and this team of people here, they pulled it off. Congratulations to everyone at NASA and JPL that worked on this project. You all deserve a big round of applause. There's a lot of excitement in this room. You can feel it. And right now, people are just waiting for the first image to come in from the camera that is on board InSight. That will give us our first look at what InSight sees on the Martian surface.
That's correct. They got it. Oh, now. Let's just wait. Let's see what they saw. There it is. Wow, right. So it's great. I don't see a lot of...
Well, that's just great, guys. We got our first picture from InSight on the Martian surface. Well done. Hang on just 1 second there. Did anybody else notice how in the live stream the atmosphere looked a lot more blue on the Martian surface? But in the still frame, it appears like it's been brown washed or almost like a filter has been applied. Here on the left is the live stream, and you can see how blue the atmosphere looks. On the right is the still frame, and you can see it looks significantly darker, browner, just washed out. Even the desktop appears to have a different color. Now, I'm not sure if this is just an optical effect of the lighting, or maybe it was caused by filming a high-definition television. It's even possible that it was intentional. Perhaps a dusty red filter was applied in order to give everything a more Martian-like appearance. I'm not sure. What do you all think? Well, folks, that's all I've got on the InSight landing on Mars. I was just telling somebody the other day how much I enjoyed making videos like these, because I get to learn something new, and I really hope you enjoyed it as well. As always, this has been Manny at Area 503, and I wish you all the best until our next video. And I am out of here to continue my search for universal truth.